Coming up on News Center this Tuesday night. Less than 24 hours since Seoul and Tokyo announced a dramatic agreement on the decades-old issue of Imperial Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women, there are disputes over whether it was a fair deal. How will the so-called Comfort Women Agreement impact Korea-Japan relations? And what about the alliance that involves Korea, the U.S., and Japan? We have an analysis. And Korea's equivalent of Silicon Valley, the nation unveils a cluster to develop Korea's creative content industry and nurture future talent. President Park Geun-hye says creative content will be the next growth engine for this country. News Center begins right now. Good evening to our viewers in Korea and hello to those around the world. Welcome to News Center. A day after Korea and Japan's landmark agreement settling the decades-old issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women before and during World War II, officials from Korea's foreign ministry visited the surviving victims to explain to them in person about this agreement. Now, the survivors spoke out against the deal, saying the settlement was not enough. Our foreign affairs correspondent Kwon So-hwa has this report.
This is the house of sharing where 10 of the so-called comfort women reside and where Korea's vice foreign minister made a visit Tuesday to talk to them. But the elderly women are asking, why after Korea and Japan's landmark settlement? Korea's vice foreign ministers Im Sung-nam and Cho Tae-yeol met with the elderly women at shelters for former victims in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province. During their visits, the ministers explained the outcome of the bilateral agreement, but it was met with criticism and concern.
My tears have never dried out.
We are the victims. How can the government agree to a settlement just like that? We cannot accept the deal. We have to be compensated individually.
The women pointed out that Japan did not take legal responsibility for the atrocity, which has been one of their main demands, and expressed disappointment that the government did not consult with them before finalizing the issue with Tokyo.
I'm sorry that we cannot provide you with an agreement that satisfies you completely, but the government will do its best so that the settlement is not the end of retrieving your honor and dignity, but just the beginning.
89-year-old Lee Ok-sun viewed Japan's apology as ungenuine.
반드시 그 피해자 앞에 와서 물 밖으로 간다 사과를 해야 그게 진짜 사과지.
And Lee added that such an apology has to be made by Prime Minister Abe himself. She is one of only 46 Koreans alive who are officially registered as so-called comfort women.
할머니들이 맨날 대사관 앞에 가서 주먹질 사죄라 배상해라. 비가 오나 눈이 오나 치고나 더구나 그 자리가 지켜야 돼. 이렇게 해도 그게 효과 없고 할머니들 힘만 빼고 할머니들 더 피곤하게 맹글지.
Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Well, as you might imagine, Korea's rival parties stood on opposite sides of the landmark deal. Arirang News parliamentary correspondent Ji Myung-gil joins us from the National Assembly. Now, Myung-gil, outline the rival parties' positions for us.
Kon-young, the ruling Saenuri Party characterized the agreement as significant progress that requires Japan to take specific course of action toward its fulfillment.
We welcome Monday's landmark deal to resolve the issue of Korean women forced into sexual slavery for Japanese soldiers during World War II. This is the first time the Japanese government has acknowledged its responsibility, with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expressing his apology and remorse from the heart.
The ruling party said it hopes the agreement will provide Seoul and Tokyo with an opportunity to build trust and begin a new era of bilateral relations. Under the deal, Tokyo has agreed to provide $8.3 million in toward the establishment of a foundation for the women that Seoul will create. The main opposition 더불어 Democratic Party said the deal is unacceptable because Japan has accepted only moral, not legal responsibility for its wartime atrocities toward the women.
Monday's deal was humiliating as it failed to specify Japan's legal responsibility. Japan claims it was settled under a bilateral treaty signed in 1965, normalizing diplomatic relations. But Korea says the sex slavery issue was not addressed in the treaty.
Flow leader Lee Jong-gar said the party is emphasizing Japan's legal responsibility because there is no statute of limitations on crimes against humanity, and such crimes must not go unpunished. Kon-young?
Our Chung reporting on the rival parties' reactions to Monday's Seoul-Tokyo settlement. Thank you indeed. Now, as pointed out by Chung, Monday's agreement was a significant step forward in terms of bilateral relations between the two countries. There's no doubt there, but there are still major points of contention that need to be ironed out. Lee-soon reports.
The agreement between Seoul and Tokyo on the issue of wartime sexual slavery has been called historic, landmark breakthrough. But major points of contention remain, raising questions about whether the issue will be fully resolved. Under the agreement, Tokyo offered a formal apology to the elderly women survivors, saying the Japanese government, quote, feels responsible and promised to pay Seoul $8.3 million for the establishment of a foundation that will offer medical and other services to the women. Japan did not, however, specify whether its responsibility is moral or legal, nor did it say whether the funds offered are to be considered a form of compensation or reparations. Of the two, only reparations imply legal compensation for losses caused by illegal acts.
The deal cannot be seen as an advance because the Japanese government is simply repeating what previous administrations have said. The deal should have included a line banning the use of offensive language by Japanese politicians and others that have insulted the victims or distorted history.
Another sticking point is whether the statue of a young girl symbolizing the women who were forced to serve as sex slaves will be moved from its current location across the Japanese embassy in Seoul. Tokyo wants the statue moved, but Seoul has long objected to the idea. In his statement announcing the agreement, Korea's foreign minister didn't offer many clues to Seoul's positions on the matter.
Seoul will hold talks with related organizations to bring about an appropriate action.
However, Japan's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida, speaking after the announcement, told Japanese reporters he understood that the statue would be moved. If that were to happen, it would likely draw objections in Korea, especially from the elderly women who have gathered around the statue for rallies every Wednesday for the past 24 years. 이수은, Arirang News.
The landmark deal is receiving attention from all around the world. Attention and mixed evaluations as well. Washington welcomed the move, Beijing not so much. For more reactions from those outside the agreement, here's Park Ji-won.
The United States has applauded Korea and Japan, its two key Asian allies, for their landmark resolution. Secretary of State John Kerry said in a statement Monday that it will, quote, promote healing and help to improve relations. The U.S. noted, however, the issue is not completely settled for the women.
I'm aware, as we all are, that there are continued grievances, people who feel aggrieved, even with this agreement. That's really for the government of South Korea, working with its own citizens.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon welcomed Monday's deal too, saying he appreciates the efforts of President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, while also expressing his hope for further improvements in their bilateral ties. China has taken a more guarded stance, urging Japan to deal with its historical issues in a responsible way. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry said Beijing hopes improved bilateral ties between Korea and Japan can be conducive to regional peace and stability, but reiterated China's long-standing position, saying Japan's forced recruitment of so-called comfort women was a serious crime against humanity. Meanwhile, as part of the agreement, Seoul and Tokyo have vowed to take a step back from denouncing each other in the international arena.
Under the premise that the Japanese government fully implements the agreement, the Korean government, along with that of Japan, will refrain from raising criticism or condemnation on the issue in the international community, such as at the United Nations.
But a civic group that has long represented the women, the Korean Council for the Women drafted for military sexual slavery in Japan, is especially critical of that promise, saying there is still a need to inform the international community about Japan's past wrongdoing. 박지원, Arirang News.
Well, the issue of Japan's wartime atrocities against Korean women is one of the biggest disputes that's kept Korea and Japan's relationship on ice. Now, some political experts believe that with this latest resolution, tensions could ease up dramatically. Kim Ji-yeon has more.
The landmark deal on Japan's World War II sex slavery is expected to help improve relations between South Korea and Japan. Political pundits predict that diplomatic channels will first be restored, with an increased number of officials making visits between the two countries. It is one of the key steps to normalize state relations. And as North Korea remains a looming threat, it's likely that as ties warm, Seoul and Tokyo will also seek to boost security cooperation in Northeast Asia.
South Korea and Japan could also boost their information intelligence sharing. The timing of the resolution is ideal in creating a conducive environment for another Korea-Japan summit that could take place on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit next March.
The researcher adds, however, there are still other issues both sides need to work on. It wasn't until 3 years after President Park Geun-hye took office that she held her first face-to-face with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe due to long-running historical rows. Tokyo continues to aggravate Seoul by claiming a territorial dispute over Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo in the East Sea. There's also concern over a rising nationalist right-wing movement in Japan that glorifies and justifies the wartime atrocities, not to mention Tokyo's moves to distort and whitewash history in school textbooks. And perhaps one of the most public and upsetting acts that Tokyo continues to display to not only South Korea but also China and neighboring countries are the regular tributes that government officials pay to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors a number of Class A war criminals from World War II. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The Korean government has been extra supportive of startups, especially in creative contents and cultural contents. Now, if you remember earlier this year, the nation launched 17 innovation centers across this country to help startups get off the ground. Today, it opened up a new 17-story complex in downtown Seoul to boost startups in the creative content industry. Arirang News Song Ji-sun reports.
93 startups will be provided with full support to turn their ideas into killer content, with part or all of their rent funded by the government. Their new home is a 17-story building in downtown Seoul that used to house a government agency but has been revamped to cater to their needs.
It's not easy for us to get contacts or steal contracts, but this is a one-stop service with similar startups clustered together.
Speaking at the opening ceremony for this wholesale center on Tuesday, President Park Geun-hye said culture content could become the next growth engine for Korea, as the sector has already proven itself in the area of job creation.
저는 우리가 직면한 여러 가지 도전을 해결할 열쇠가 우리의 문화에 있고 문화 콘텐츠 산업에 있다고 생각합니다. 문화 콘텐츠 산업은 제조업의 2배가 넘는 일자리를 만들어내고 종사자의 절반 이상이 34세 이하입니다. 또한 문화 콘텐츠는 그 자체로 훌륭한 상품 가치를 가질 뿐만 아니라 제조업과 서비스 산업의 발전까지 선도하는 잠재력을 가지고 있습니다.
The government has set aside $113 million next year to foster the sector, and projects 53,000 new jobs will be created over the next 5 years. The new center is part of a government project to build a chain of cultural facilities that will foster cultural convergence, beginning with the brainstorming phase and including investment and consumption. The full chain, which includes a culture academy, a content lab, and platforms for experiencing both traditional and modern Korean culture, is set to be completed by 2017. 송지선, Arirang News.
Grabbing headlines in the technology sector this year in Korea was HUBO, a humanoid robot that won the DARPA Robotics Challenge in the summer. Now, that victory has proven that Korea is rapidly emerging as a top robotics nation. Global media has since been focusing on Korea's technology in this sector, some saying it's reminiscent of how Korean car makers rapidly caught up with their Japanese counterparts in recent decades as both nations sought to topple America's big three. So, how advanced is Korea's robotics technology? Our Kwon Jang-ho went to meet HUBO and his team to find out himself.
Meet HUBO. Weighing in at 80 kilos and standing at 1.75 meters tall, HUBO is a humanoid robot developed at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology to enter a robotics competition set up by DARPA, the U.S. Department of Defense research agency. Thank you. It was HUBO's versatility and quick feet, or wheels rather, that brought him the top spot at this year's DARPA's Robotics Challenge. The challenge was inspired in the aftermath of the nuclear disaster at Fukushima in 2011, and research was being done on how robots could be developed to help in similar situations. The robots did not look particularly pretty, but the challenge was about functionality, and HUBO passed with flying colours, completing all tasks in the quickest time. One of the most unique features is how it transforms down to use wheels in its knees, allowing it to move swiftly and stably. Falling over is still one of the biggest obstacles bipedal robots face. HUBO also has an ingenious way of traversing stairs and rough terrain by rotating its body and walking backwards. For Professor Oh, the mastermind of HUBO, it was a proud moment, but surely the journey was not easy. Different versions of HUBO have been in development since 2002.
We're very happy that HUBO came first, but that doesn't mean he's the best robot or we have the best robot technology in the world. But what we showed is that we can now compete with countries from whom we had learnt from in the past.
Korea has advanced greatly in the field of robotics, but Professor Oh warns that there's still a long way to go.
Korea is still a newcomer in the field of robotics, especially robotics for businesses. We basically import 100% of our manufacturing robots. The government and businesses need to think long-term, continue investing, and encouraging research.
Further advancements and developments are continuously being done on HUBO, while at the same time HUBO has been busy, so as to speak, working as a model and tool for further research and education. Moreover, HUBO has even been invited to attend next month's World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos.
The Davos Forum is where the world's top political, business, and cultural minds gather. We'll show what HUBO can do, but we'll also look at what aspects they are interested in and see what we can take away from that.
Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Korean shipbuilders once dominated the global market. Emphasis on once. Now, times appear to be changing. The global shipping industry has been in a slump, and while Korean shipbuilders have been struggling to stay afloat amid falling orders and massive losses, Chinese players are making their way into the ranks of the industry's elite. Our Kim Min-ji sheds light on the signs of a possible dethronement in the works.
Are Korean shipbuilders' golden days almost over? For the first time ever, a Chinese shipyard has broken into the top 5 global players in terms of order backlog. According to UK-based Clarkson Research Services, Shanghai Waigaojiao Shipbuilding had an order backlog in November of just over 3 million compensated gross tons, an indicator of the level of shipbuilding output. That puts a Chinese company in 5th place. All of the top 5 positions had been held by Korean shipbuilders until now. Ranking first was Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering with 8.2 million CGTs, followed by Samsung Heavy Industries with just over 5 million. Korean shipbuilders have been engaging in belt-tightening measures after posting eye-watering losses in recent months, mainly brought on by delayed construction, cancelled orders, as well as rising costs and low global oil prices. Korea's Big Three logged a combined loss of over $4 billion in the first half of the year. Even more concerning is that prospects aren't looking good for next year either.
The difficult situation they're in will continue into 2016. There's two main factors that will have an effect: oil prices and global cargo volume. Only when oil prices start to pick up will the industry hope to see recovery signs.
Analysts say that in order to maintain competitiveness, local shipbuilders need to focus on their core strengths rather than expand their business, like branching off into construction of offshore plants where they lack experience. They add that the government will also need to help small shipbuilders, as it's only a matter of time before Chinese shipyards catch up. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
One of Korea's most prestigious orchestras, the Seoul Philharmonic, is bidding adieu to one of its most notable musical directors. Maestro Chung has decided to step down from his post after 10 years. Unfortunately, his decision was motivated by a string of public disputes with the controversy-mired SPO. Lee Ji-won has the details.
This is the letter Maestro Chung Myung-hoon sent to members of the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra on Tuesday, explaining the grounds of his departure. It comes after 10 years with SPO and just a day after the orchestra's board of directors held contract renewal talks with Chung on Monday. The maestro said it is unfortunate that he and his members' work had been disgraced by one person's lie, and that it's ironic how the victim in this whole situation is now being questioned by the police. Chung's wife was booked without detention last week for allegedly pressuring staff to forge letters in 2014 saying that Park Hyun-jung, then CEO, sexually harassed and mistreated staff. Park stepped down in December of that year but was later cleared of the charges. She in turn filed defamation charges against the staff that had made the accusations. During investigations, police found that Chung's wife was behind the false rumors on Park. The Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra said they are in the process of confirming Chung's decision to step down. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Korea boasts a number of amazing winter festivals offering activities like ice fishing, sledding, and other snow-based fun. But in recent weeks, a number of them have been put on hold or canceled altogether. Our Oh Soo-young reports on how unseasonably mild weather is hurting such businesses.
This winter, frosty winds have been chilling many to the bone. Even still, it's quite not cold enough in Korea to make for white snowy conditions.
Every winter, there's a huge festival here in northern Gyeonggi-do province, which brings in around 1 million visitors for a spot of ice fishing. But in the week of its grand opening, the organisers have cancelled the event because the ice isn't thick enough.
The ice on this lake needs to be around 25 centimeters thick, but right now it's only 2 to 3 centimeters. We initially postponed the event, but now we've cancelled it completely for the safety of our visitors.
This is happening all across the country. Weather experts say it's all due to the unusually warm temperatures that we're getting. In November, the average reading in Korea was 2.5 degrees higher than the historical baseline, and this month's average of 4.3 degrees Celsius is 2.2 degrees higher than normal.
Due to the El Nino weather phenomenon, warm, moist air from the tropical Western Pacific brought more rain to Korea in October, and in November and December, we saw particularly warmer temperatures.
El Nino occurs when waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean rise 0.5 degree or higher above the historical baseline temperature for 5 straight months, due to weakening trade winds blowing west. Affecting air pressure and atmospheric circulation, El Nino often causes tumultuous turns to weather around the world, resulting in the flooding we saw in Peru and the forest fires in Australia. This year, the weather phenomenon escalated to the 3rd strongest of its kind in 50 years, rising about 3 degrees above average in just the past 2 months. Most meteorologists believe it will last through the spring, and Korea will be affected accordingly, with above-seasonal temperatures predicted to linger through February, which altogether casts a dismal outlook for winter events lined up for the rest of the season. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Global oil prices stabilized slightly following a 3% drop Monday, but the slight jump on falling temperatures is little indication prices will stop driving market volatility next year. Bruce Harrison joins me live in the studio. Bruce, what is the state of the markets as we wrap up this year?
Hello, Kanyang. Right now, prices are hovering just above their 11-year lows ahead of 2016. The main reasons being global demand slowing, and there's just too much oil in the market. Saudi Arabia is largely to blame there. It's pumping a near record amount of oil to fight off higher cost rivals right now.
Well, the super low oil prices may be the biggest financial story of this year. What kind of an effect have they had on the market? And going forward, what about in 2016?
Well, the price drops had a noticeable effect on energy companies. They've been hurt. And on top of that, the volatility's lowered inflation expectations and obviously led to monetary tightening in the U.S. And what can we expect next year? Well, Saudi Arabia is showing no signs of changing its policies and slowing oil production. Additionally, Iran's preparing to ramp up exports, so it looks like the market's going to remain saturated, which will keep prices down. On Wall Street Monday, shares closed lower due to the steep drop in oil.
Today, oil prices looked like they had bottomed earlier this month, $34, $35 a barrel. Now it looks like we're going to have to retest that at the very least before the market really believes it.
Saudi Arabia has said it's counting on global demand to help rebalance the market throughout 2016, but some are skeptical of that theory. A trader with CME Group said the demand situation doesn't indicate there's going to be an increase in oil prices. Authorities in Mexico have detained Ethan Couch, the so-called Affluenza teen. He's wanted in Texas for allegedly violating probation after he killed 4 people and seriously injured 2 others in a drunk driving crash. Couch and his mother, Tanya, were apprehended in the Mexican resort city of Puerto Vallarta. Couch was sentenced to a 10-year probation and disappeared earlier this month after a video surfaced allegedly showing him at a party with alcohol, a likely parole violation. Law enforcement said earlier this month they suspected his mother of helping him flee.
I think we all have a very strong suspicion, and we believe that she's helping him and that she's assisting him. But as far as what we believe and what we think and what we can prove are 2 different things, and we don't.
Couch was nicknamed the Affluenza team because of his criminal defense. His lawyers and a psychologist argued he didn't know right from wrong because his rich parents spoiled him. Police in Belgium have arrested 2 people suspected of plotting an attack in Brussels on New Year's Eve. Federal prosecutors said police found military clothing and Islamic State propaganda material, but no weapons or explosives. The prosecutors said their investigation revealed serious threats of an attack at symbolic places during New Year's celebrations. Belgian citizens have been on alert for weeks as police there have arrested 9 people in connection with the Paris attacks on November 13th. On Christmas, Belgium's King Philip tried to reassure his people.
Ladies and gentlemen, in order to defend our society, it is important not to let anyone intimidate us nor divide us. This is what our attackers are looking for.
Prosecutors have said the 2 arrests this week are not linked to the Paris terror investigation. 6 people had been taken in for questioning following house searches in Brussels, a neighboring province, and Liège this week, but 4 were released.
Well, Bruce, your dusty collection of old books may be worth much more than you think, and now a company in London created a price index to help you find out just exactly how much you can actually get for these old books. How much are we talking about?
Some of these are pretty pricey. Stanley Gibbons is the company you spoke of, and they released a rare price index showing some of these books run into tens of thousands of dollars. The index contains 31st edition 20th century classics. Some James Bond novels are also in there, including Ian Fleming's Casino Royale, which is priced at nearly $36,000.
First editions. The first edition is always key because normally a publishing house has taken a bit of a punt on an author. So the first print run tends to be quite small. And therefore, if they go on to have success, that creates a rarity.
The priciest novel on Gibbons' price index is F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby at nearly $360,000 US.
Bruce, I love The Great Gatsby, but really $360,000.
Yeah, that's a lot, even for a Christmas gift,
Right. I mean, it would make a really good Christmas gift for those collectors out there, but still, that is a whole lot of zeros for a book.
You have to be a serious collector.
Right. Well, a book is always a great gift and something that we should consider for the end of the year.
You never know.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you, Bruce, for that.
My pleasure.
Well, the mercury seems to have gone back to average levels, and while warmer temperatures are certainly a relief after a cold snap, they're being a source of great concern for those working at winter festivals, like our Oh Soo-young's report earlier. Well, for more on the latest weather updates, let's go over to our Jihan.
Hello, Ganyong. Yes, due to frequent mild and rainy days we've had so far this winter, some seasonal festivals, including ice fishing and ice sculpture exhibitions, had to be postponed or canceled.
Right. The short but intense cold snap we had in the last couple of days has surely subsided, thank goodness, because I caught a cold after that. Right. But are we to expect similar conditions for what remains of 2015?
Well, Ganyang, temperatures might have gone up, but wintry weather is in store for tomorrow. Lots of clouds to kick off the day, leading to a mix of rain and snow later in the afternoon for most parts of the peninsula, with heavy snow advisory could be issued in some parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces during the day, with up to 8 centimeters of heavy snowfall. And here in Seoul, we'll see 2 to 5 centimeters of snowfall starting in the afternoon, so have an umbrella handy for your evening commute. This morning was a very cold one. Sensory temperature was nearly minus 15 degrees Celsius, but tomorrow morning we'll wake up to slightly higher daily lows, as here in Seoul will kick off at -4, -3 for Daejeon and Daegu, 0 for Busan, while Jeju should start out the day at 4. And afternoon highs will be similar to a tad higher than today, as the top temperature here in the capital will top out at 3, 8 for Daegu. Busan and Jeju will see a high of 9 and 11 tomorrow afternoon. Now, Thursday seems to be milder than Wednesday, while Friday or New Year's Day will see morning lows slightly above the seasonal average under mostly sunny skies. On New Year's Eve, you could check out the last sunset of 2015 as early as 5:15 p.m. in Gangneung in Gangwon-do province, while the first sunrise of 2016 will start at 7:47 a.m. here in the capital. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, we only have 2 days left of 2015. Hope you're taking the time to reflect on the year and making plans for the new year as well. That is our broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Moon Gun-young. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NEWSCENTER.